afternoon. Good after break afternoon. Is anybody awake out there?
Yes.
Yay! You can. I will fully encourage everyone to stand up and jump up and down and do jumping jacks for a few seconds if you need to get that blood going. If there's not enough caffeine out there for you.
Anybody want to do it? Jumping jacks?
You think very strongly about it.
Think all right. All right.
On the other hand, that's a lot of movement.
Yeah. So, well, we are from Indiana University, the Indianapolis campus, which is home to the McKinney School of Law. We have Max Huffman, who is faculty at the McKinney School of Law, and I am Jeani Young, and I work actually with University Information Technology Services in a unit called E-Learning Design and Development. And Tom Janke, who is with the Indianapolis Campus Center for Teaching and Learning. You're the assistant director. So, and we are here to talk about partnering with other units outside of the law school to develop and support online learning. So, that's.
All right. So I'm trying to decide, the last panel, which was relatively full right after lunch, we'll get back to lunch and we'll fill up. And at the end, I made a pitch to come to this panel. You know, let's see you again, and the room is relatively empty now. I'm trying to decide if I should read something into that or if just the food is actually out there. But nonetheless, we shall proceed undaunted. Start with this. Active participation process. Stay awake after lunch. My recollection from yesterday was, despite the quality of the second panel after lunch, that was the hardest one to stay awake in, I think, because of the timing and because of phenomenal food. So, who's online or whose institution is online in some fashion in the room? Okay, so the question is, how are you doing it? Are you doing it yourself? Is it a particular faculty member saying, I'm going online, I want to be out of town for this semester or something like that? Anybody in the room with that experience?
We have some of that also.
So there's some of that, right? There's some faculty who say, this is for my particular pedagogical preference or personal lifestyle preference, a good way for me to teach my courses.
Or just I'm stranded at the airport.
Okay, there's that too, right? The makeup idea, right? You go off to a conference, or I'm at the CALIcon conference, I can't teach, I got to put the course online, because there's some of that. Second option, law schools, within the law school itself, not reaching outside the borders. The law school is trying to create courses or programs, but it's sort of a vertical that you are saying, let's do this. Anyway, that experience, the dean is trying to get you to go online in some fashion. There's some of this going on. Okay, not very much. Okay, third option, you're reaching outside of the law school in some fashion, working with the university. You've got either a directive from the university or you just have money out there to get your hands on. You're using that to help some online development. Anybody doing some of that here at the university, the larger university? Nobody.
University's down.
University down and they're in law school, right? Everybody's poor. Okay. The fourth one, working with an outside provider, right? A third party, frequently for-profit, but whether or not for-profit, an outside provider who is coming in and helping you put your courses online, maybe doing some of the back office management process. Anybody doing some of that? You've got, okay. Are you willing to disclose the names of your partners, or is that?
Well, Thomas Jefferson School of Law outsources the student services and recruitment.
Okay, you outsource the services and recruitment.
That's right.
Did they do some of the back office for the LMS and all that as well, or that's all?
No, that's it.
All that in-house.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your experience?
We're IES, Integrated Educational Solutions.
Okay.
Not very good.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, this is the first time we're doing it.
Okay.
And we were supposed to launch 6 months ago, and we're not even close to launching.
Okay. Got it. So there are always quality control issues with outsourcing, right? I mean, it's nice because you have someone hopefully bringing in funds, but it gets out of your personal control. So when we were thinking about going online, and the circumstance at McKinney was we got a new dean. Actually, the previous dean was also on board, although he hadn't been proactive. The new dean said, "This is going to happen." At about that time, I was a tenure faculty member, sent one of those improvident all faculty emails saying, "Gee, we got to go online." And the dean says, Huffman, you being a tenured faculty member, why don't you be in charge of this? Right? Make things happen. So it sort of spun that way, and we had the choices to make, which include: do we try to do this all in-house? Is the law school going to develop its own online programs, probably driven by a charismatic faculty member, hopefully more charismatic than myself, but somebody who's able to really bring people on board? That's one option. A second option we thought was we can reach out to the building and pair with a third-party provider. Incidentally, my experience working with talking to third-party providers, God bless them all, but it is something like responding to a solicitation that comes over your email for the sale of shoes or something. You can never get rid of them after you first answer the call. For good and for bad, right? In other words, the opportunity remains open, but there's always the question about, in other words, the lesson I learned from that is there is ample opportunity to work with a third-party person if you want to do so. Right? The fact that you hung up the phone the first time does not mean you lost the opportunity. And the third option for us was to look across campus and across the university and try to partner internally to Indiana University and keep all of the work inside of Indiana University and find some way to try to do this ourselves, but not with just the law school resources. We concluded we weren't good enough. So we selected the third option. We selected partnering across campus, across Indiana University. The rationale for that might be unique to us, although maybe this is worth thinking about for yourselves. So that's the purpose of the panel today, is think about why you might be partnering on campus or across the university. In our circumstance, about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, Michael McRobbie, the president of Indiana University, said, gee, we got to go online as an institution. And he put a bunch of money behind it. I think the number was like $8 million or something for the university-wide. And he said, use this money to give grants to faculty to develop courses. Use this money to give grants to programs, to sort of discrete units within the university to develop programs. And he set a strategic goal across the university of saying, I want every discrete program or school to have a program online by X date. I think that date's now passed, but it's
this fall.
This fall, so it's coming up. Okay, so a program, and program to me is an undefined term. It wasn't a degree, it wasn't necessarily a certificate, it was something you call a program, whatever that happens to be. So there was money available, and there were resources available in terms of course developers, in terms of some strategic thinking about how a program might be developed online. So at least at McKinney, we sort of thought about going online at the same time that Indiana University said, we'd really like you to be doing this and we will help you pay for it. And there's a whole bunch of resources available. And so we took advantage of the cross-university partnership, sort of always keeping our mind open to the idea of goodness, maybe the other opportunities remain there, right? If third-party providers come up with a really good option for us, we'd like to keep that option available. But we found such success with the cross-university partnership that's been the course we've taken.
Can you give us a ballpark on what your president or the university saw as a grant that would entice faculty?
Sure. So the president did not actually get that great number. The president gave $8 million to the university and said, you folks here are someone to spend
And
this.
we should clarify that Indiana University has 7 campuses around the state,
Yeah.
and that the Indianapolis campus is not the mothership campus. Bloomington is the mothership campus.
So you're competing with a bunch of people for $8 million. Now, a couple of things were in our favor. He said, one, I want to emphasize graduate programs, graduate and professional, so that it helped a lot to be a law school in that circumstance. The grants that have enticed faculty to develop courses have been, we call it a curriculum enhancement grant. By the way, I think not a unique term to us, because when I Google CEG, a lot of schools have something called a CEG, a curriculum enhancement grant. So worth considering whether your school has these as well. $5,000. $5,000 was enough to convince a faculty member to spend his or her summer, in addition to whatever article he or she was trying to write, to work with. The other thing that the grant gave you is 2 people to work with to develop the course. So far, that's been enough. Whether that continues as we sort of move into more recalcitrant faculty ranks is a different question.
That be instructional designer and multimedia expert?
Instructional. Well, so let's move to that. Because
We'll talk about the structure.
That's coming. Yeah, right. So I think that's. I think we're going to benefits of partnering.
So yeah. Well, Tom, do you want to do the structure first?
Yeah, I can do that.
Since it came up. Yeah. It's all the same slide.
Oh, it is?
Oh, no, never mind. It's not the same slide. There you go.
Okay.
Okay. So we did receive this pile of money. Now, I represent the image on the left, which is the teaching center. Many of your institutions probably have those too. Show of hands, who's got teaching centers? places? Okay. So we already had this charge to provide ongoing kind of faculty development services related to all kinds of teaching, whether it's face-to-face, online, what have you. We also had grants in place to incentivize innovation in the classroom. So one way, as Max had mentioned, about distributing these funds for these online course development programs was to make it a competitive kind of grant process that speaks faculty language. Right? Faculty do grants all the time, so it makes sense to do that again. So as Max said, we did $5,000 per course, but the intent was to do programs and to get kind of critical mass with lots of courses. So we do $15,000 for 3 courses. And there's even some other, that was one funding mechanism. There's also another funding mechanism where they were strategically selected by campus leadership. So there's a couple different ways that courses and programs got funded. Anyway, I represent the teaching center. We have a team of instructional designers and technologists, instructional technologists. I actually head up the instructional technology team at our shop. But one of the outcomes of this $8 million funding was also this office called E-Learning Design Services. Did I say that right?
No,
which is what
yes.
Jeani represents. And their mission is to get involved in these projects and essentially be project managers and really spearhead the design process. So they would do a backward design process with these faculty groups to get these courses launched at a high degree of quality. The teaching center would come alongside of that process and add support, but then we would kind of take the ball after the course got launched and continue to do faculty development and preparation to teach these online courses. So we work very closely to do that. So that's how those partnerships are kind of divvied up a little bit. Now, in addition to having that IT and IDD instructional design support, their office also has multimedia specialists. The gentleman over here was asking about that. So there was lots of resources put into the ability to create high quality video, right? To do custom kind of web, I want to say animations maybe in some cases, but mainly it was like web development related to some activities and to design, look and feel, and that kind of thing. There's a graphic designer on staff, so we have that capability. And then how many designers are on staff at the?
I wouldn't say we're excessively staffed. Our unit started up from the grant, and we have 4 instructional designers spread across all 7 campuses. We have 1 videographer spread across, and he's got a couple of people who are working with him. They built a studio in Bloomington so that people could come in and do video recording, and they're building one up in Indianapolis to do video recording so so that any faculty member anywhere in any school can walk into this studio in the library, and it's a one button studio where they can sit down, they can put their flash drive in the computer, they can push the big easy button, and the light comes on and they record, and then they push the button again and they're done, and they walk out with their video, which is going to be higher quality than they would get on their webcam. But then we have 1 graphic designer, and we have 1 web developer, and we have a lead instructional technologist who does research into different kinds of technology tools that can then vet those kinds of things, work with our accessibility specialists who are in the accessibility office to make sure these kinds of tools are accessible as much as humanly possible, so that we can provide better suggestions to faculty as to what they should use and what they shouldn't use.
So in addition, and we'll touch on this more when you get to your part, but in addition to those kinds of resources, I hope you're getting the picture. There's a lot of upfront support to get these courses and programs online, but then there's ongoing kind of faculty development support to make sure that faculty feel equipped to be able to teach these courses and have what they need to be online. The piece that we're still trying to figure out, and I think we will, is the ongoing maintenance. Right, once you launch an online course, you have to revise it at some point in time, right? So that takes effort. I think that'll largely fall to our office in many cases. Accessibility is being addressed. Quality Matters, anybody at Quality Matters institution? Do you know what that is? Have you heard of Quality Matters? Okay, it's a benchmark or a set of guidelines to ensure that you've got quality online courses. And it addresses things like Many addresses design, but it addresses things like, are you providing ample supports to students of all types? IT support, accessibility support. Do you have good alignment and communicating clearly about your objectives and the assignments that feed into that? It's basically that kind of approach. And so we're kind of getting involved with that activity too.
So it's sort of worth expanding on that from my perspective as a faculty member who sees the quality measure rubric. I think it's University of Maryland, but the consortium of a couple of schools put together this. It is a rubric for assessing quality design in online course creation. And it is a 8 or 9 part rubric. And Tom mentioned several of them, but there are things like accessibility and things like the students even know where to go to start the course and things like, goodness, I'm now losing my train of thought. But the point of it sort of is you sign up to have access to the rubric. It costs a fair amount of money. In other words, it's a big investment by the institution to do it. You get trained in using the rubric. It's a full 1-day training. You then can use the Quality Matters rubric as a peer review tool, so you can have people come in after the fact and review your course once it's being taught. We haven't actually taken the step to doing that, but that's something we very much want to be doing. And if everything goes as smoothly as you hope, Quality Matters gives you their service mark, right, their stamp of approval, kind of like Underwriters Laboratory you see in the light bulbs, that will say this is a Quality Matters approved online course. We have real high hopes, I think, that this will maintain a level of quality that at least I'm not convinced we see even in face-to-face courses where you don't have that kind of invasive outside review of what you're accomplishing. It's a really unique opportunity. I think worth web searching for Quality Matters and considering whether that or a similar style of peer review process is worth considering as you do some of these.
One of those things that was brought in that the institution brought in.
Right.
That's not something that any individual school did, but it was an institution-wide thing that we were able then to bring to the law school and say, here, this is something that you can use as you're starting to work with these courses.
And let me rewind and touch on the grants that Max mentioned a few minutes ago. There was a matching requirement. Yes. So he mentioned $5,000 per course. Well, the school or department, whatever the case was or is, would have to match that. Usually that was in terms of course buyout or maybe hiring additional graduate students to help out with something that could take a variety of forms. So we realized that we're pretty lucky to have all those resources. But prior to this $8 million package, the teaching center did a lot of this activity anyway. We supported faculty in doing online course development. And you can see that we could easily get overwhelmed. I think I heard that in a previous session today. This is a huge process, doing online course development. It's overwhelming. So what I want to do, though, at this point in time, is pause. I'll be quiet. And I want us to maybe turn to a neighbor or so, and I want you to just jot down some potential partners that you think might be approachable at your own institutions to see. I mean, you might not have teaching centers. If you do, they might be the obvious choice. And maybe there's internal folks. Maybe there's other partners across campus that you think might be able to begin to maybe look at an approach like this. So let's take 3 or 4 minutes and do that, and then we'll do a little bit of report out and see how that goes. Okay?
Which school are you at?
I'm North Carolina Central University.
Oh, NCCU?
Yep.
I know you're actually used to attend work with stuff. Actually, we've been there for work. We had y'all sponsored work that became Reverend Sales.
Okay.
Yeah. Going to Texas A&M, law school science, Dallas, college station. Which one you are? So, there we go. You're on the university side or law school side? What do you do?
I'm a clinical professor. I'm actually finished retirement now. 3 years later. But I'm still around for the moment, and so this is trying to think outside the box.
Still been in there for a while. I'm going to check to see from y'all's institutional side, y'all have really good central IT department, isn't it? From what I see, y'all have a big state grant too.
Actually, the law library. Michelle Cosby.
Michelle.
Y'all got a big grant from the state to build out.
Yes, and They just renamed the room as well, and so they've been doing a lot more distance education classes, and they're incentivizing people to teach distance education classes by paying them more as well for those classes instead of standard face-to-face classes. They're trying to encourage people to do that.
What's y'all school education?
At the School of Education?
No, what are y'all partnering as a law school? You got Central,
I don't know. Because I don't deal with that part. I don't know who they're partnering with. I just show up to teach my class, and for me, it's magic.
So y'all partner with Central IT, I know. I just don't know if Central IT goes outside of education.
They seem to be able to, I don't know if they do or not. It seems like they should be able to go out themselves. From the new head of Central IT came and talked at the last staff meeting, and she was just talking about a lot of their new initiatives, and she never mentioned partnering with us.
We just wrote it out. I forget. So y'all lost the one to do something 2 or 3 years ago, and then university. Yeah, right. I'm funding that.
I can't remember. I've always... Oh, maybe, okay, I know what you're talking about. Yes. You wanted to do...
Y'all have it residential in Chinese Great Charlotte.
I didn't follow that whole business, but I knew that they had been working very hard on getting the China program together and get it approved. And I don't know that.
The one that has distance education, the university is in Woodman.
Right.
Six of the law Remember her name. USD?
Yeah. Oh no,
University is the law school. She was on y'all's side. The dean came to her and said, "Do this." And then they were like,
Common problem.
Yeah, let's give it another minute, and then we'll do a discussion about what you all figured out.
We were doing this on the law side, distance education, undergraduate classes with Fayetteville State and Elizabeth City. And one of the schools had such a number of enrollment that they actually had to cut class for that semester just because of the level of enrollment. So at the center, his last name was Smith, but his first name was Yes, of the main.
We had to go to the and say, you got it.
She did say that we're going to have to start using a scholarly communications officer because of...
Okay, if I can have your attention, we want to see what you all kind of determined in your groups. So who are some logical partners, maybe your own institutions, that you kind of brainstormed and figured out might be approachable with this kind of method? Any thoughts?
All these vendors, you know, I mean, are they all your vendor reps? I mean, who want to, I mean, there's a limitation to that, I think, because they're selling the product. But Westlaw reps, Lexus reps, Bloomberg reps, those kinds of people.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier this external partner kind of vendor options. That seems like it's a viable option. Okay.
And absolutely, I've never had the phone call about calling a vendor and saying, hey, do you want to talk? No, they don't always give you what you're asking for, but
well, they give you.
They're thrilled to talk to you.
They have an agenda.
Yeah.
So they will talk to you.
Yes.
They have motivation.
Yeah.
Oh, good. What other kind of partners? Maybe on campus or in, yeah.
Well, we were both talking, both of our universities have some sort of director of university online education or something like that, vice provost or vice chancellor or something like that. That office is a good source.
Yeah, you use them and you reach out to them and talk to them actually?
We haven't had ours very long.
Well, I have.
Okay.
both as a professor, as a librarian, and as the head of the media resource department, I have reached out to them. And that's actually media resources, IT, and your library are all good sources too for any sort of online course.
So say that again, media resources, IT, and library.
Yeah, if you have a separate media AD resource type department, and a lot of places do, sometimes it's rolled into another department, but sometimes they're separate.
And so the library, outside of the law library, and the Media Resources Center outside of the Law Media Resources Center are also things that you might not initially think about, but those kinds of roles are often duplicated, if not just at the campus level, but at other school levels also.
What other partners did you brainstorm?
Well, at UNM we have, our main campus has a fairly extensive online course development staff, because the main campus does a lot of online courses. Law school does zero. So if we wanted to, I've talked to them because we chat and I both have friends over there. It would be very simple for us to take their technology and bring it over to anyone and set it up. But the biggest thing for us would be an instructional design. We would have to really have someone to take the courses as they are now in the brick and mortar fashion and translate them into an effective online teaching experience.
Are there any other offices on your campus that serve that role?
There are. We have an extended learning department who has instructional designers and stuff like that, but I'm not sure, since we don't do any of it now, it would be hard to judge whether or not we could use somebody from there or if we would just have to steal somebody from there permanently. Maybe borrowing someone for a while might work, but really, honestly, if I had my brothers, I'd rather have
one person in the law school, is that what you're saying? Okay. Good. Any other partners that came up?
I think you need some faculty partners.
Absolutely.
Yeah, respected members of the faculty for buying for other faculty to get involved with that, because I don't think an administrator can drive that effort.
Right. Yeah, many of these grants that Max mentioned earlier were driven by faculty, which is powerful, right? Because they're the influencers, and they become exemplars, basically, the rest of the faculty.
Let me think about others.
Cynthia, do you guys want to talk about what you were talking about?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
On our side of things, we have a small team done called Teaching and Transforming Education. They're a little more on the training side than they are on the kind of instructional design and assistance side. They'd at least be helpful in getting us some of those skills, though. Beyond that, our ideas revolved around grad students, potentially from the Teachers College or any other area that might have some stake in some of these topics and be able to work with it to produce data for themselves as well.
Which is if you've not thought about looking at what's going on at the graduate, the master's, or the doctoral level in your assorted schools of education or your social sciences schools, there are students out there who need capstone projects. There are students out there who are looking for PhD, dissertation, research ideas. Not at Indianapolis, but at IU Bloomington, we have a graduate program in instructional systems technology. Sometimes they're called that, sometimes they're called educational technology. You could even look in your graduate programs in educational psychology, in adult education. To a certain extent, it's probably industrial and organizational psychology. But they can be called a variety of different things. But just given, if there are no free instructional designers floating around on your campus, there are students out there who are at that end of the master's degree or going into dissertation work who may very well need those kinds of experiences as part of their program.
One source that hasn't been mentioned is other schools on campus who might or might not have resources and be interested in working with the law school. So one of the places that I started looking before we got the opportunities and sort of were fortunate enough to stop looking I started calling our informatics school. It's got some online programs. I thought, gee, maybe we can jump on board with some of that. The business school, the Kelly School of Business at Indiana University, has been online for a long time. I thought, gee, that's something we could interact with. I know our health law program is engaged with the medical school and the nursing school to some degree in there. So another source, I'm always surprised to hear that people actually want to hear from me when I call them, but frequently they do. If the law school is interested, that there may be an opportunity to share some resources, or if nothing else, get some ideas. When you and I were talking, my thought was, there's a great business school at Nevada, obviously up in Reno, right? But maybe that's a source that might or might not have funds and might or might not want to hear from you.
Yeah, if you're doing joint degrees, with other schools, like the JD MBA or the, what's the copyright law, the patent law one? That's not your area. There's the health law, that there are jointly offered programs that end up with a double degree, a JD and something else, a JD and an MBA, a JD and an MPH, a JD and an MFA, or whatever that might be. So that would have resources.
To wrap up, my view of the reason for taking this time of brainstorming on this and thinking about going home and brainstorming with your colleagues about this, we at McKinney don't have the resources to do this stuff on our own. There are third-party vendors, but I always felt like they're selling me something, and I was worried about tying myself to something where I wasn't sure about where that would go. It is purely a charitable effort on the part of McRobbie to try to help us out. That's overstating it, but it is, Indiana University is looking out for my interests in that partnership. And to the extent there are resources available, they're worth pursuing. Now, we happen to be fortunate right now with this current initiative, and I respect the idea that every school is strapped in some fashion or another. But it's worth looking for what's out there in terms of grant funds, in terms of the kind of design expertise. Benefits generally, sorry.
Yeah, maybe someone who doesn't have as much of an agenda is just bringing in alumni. I think because, and I've done that often, to bring in practitioners who can tell what it was like learning in academia and then what's the difference learning, doing practice. And they're really eager, I think, to draw upon their teaching and then their real world experience. We often talk about practice-ready graduates.
So a very important point, but on two fronts. One is we actually started with an Alumni Association grant to apply for money from our Alumni Association to get to do some technology-based teaching. This was 3 or 4 years ago. It wasn't much, but it was enough money to incentivize some faculty to get on board. The second is exactly this. It is seeing alumni as a relatively inexpensive source of expertise. We're talking about adjunct professors from a diverse realm who might be interested in using online methods so they don't have to show up in class every day. I think there's good thoughts on many fronts. Yeah.
Why don't we have one question?
Sorry if I missed this, but when the president of IU said, I've got $8 million, we want to get online, it sounds like it didn't come with much of a directive about the resources to go to. Did it have any suggestions like that teaching center, or was it everything left up entirely to, who that email went out to, that go forth and find your resources?
There's an office that is coordinating all of this, the IU Online office, which is actually where all of the regulatory compliance things come from. They're the folks that do all of the, you must be legal in all 50 states, compliance kinds of things, as well as shepherding through other more administrative managerial aspects of it. So that was a good chunk of that, and they're overseeing some of that. They're doing those kinds of larger policy things down there. Since we skipped over this, I guess we've got a few minutes left, but just to kind of circle back to some of the things and look at some additional roles that Center for Teaching and Learning and other more organized units can provide that you may have other sources for spread about a bunch of different units. We talked about the project management role a bit because, as Max said in the previous presentation, for those of you who weren't here, that it took 18 months for him to get from concept of taking his course online to actually getting his course online. And you have faculty with the best intentions in the world, but they have time issues, they have commitments, they have writing, they have teaching, they have all of these different things. Having someone as a primary consultant just to help keep them on track, even if it's just a matter of saying we're meeting for an hour every other week, and that hour every other week is the only time that faculty member actually works on anything, it's still, they're working on it more than they would be working on it if they were on their own. We talked quite a bit about the funding. Media support, like I said, we have a videographer. The institution is investing in a studio in Indianapolis and a studio in Bloomington. But we also have in Bloomington a media arts school. There's another group. Is there a film unit in in the arts technology thing that does film?
I don't think it.
Okay. But there are in the school, in the art school, there are again resources, students that need portfolio pieces. So if you have faculty who are willing to work with upper level students, there are sources for better quality videography that you're going to get at your webcam. Especially in the relation to lighting and audio. So because you can get some interesting videos going from faculty webcams. But yeah, it's done in their basement. I've seen some that look like Blair Witch Project. and you put them in just a regular conference room space with some good lighting coming in, and with a cell phone camera, for crying out loud. It looks better than them doing it themselves, sitting in a basement. So if you have just people with an eye for that kind of thing, who's posting good YouTube videos in your school? The faculty development piece is really coming from our Center for Teaching and Learning. They are doing ongoing faculty development on a variety of things, but also our IT training folks, which you probably all have in your institution. Are there people in your IT areas that do training, generally speaking, on common tools? So there are faculty that may not be using the LMS at all. There are most likely people in the IT department that will do workshops, on how to use the LMS, how to make all of the bells and whistles in your LMS work, how to do things more efficiently and more accessibly in Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. So those kinds of resources that you may think of as very specifically, I call them when something breaks, they probably also have more of a training and support function going on alongside there. Strategy support. Matt, did you want to talk about that, the strategic conversations piece?
Sure.
So, because you're at that.
Yeah. Well, one of the ways that we've used the partnership, and I think fairly effectively, we have seen them as a way to think about program design and sort of thoughtful approach to actually putting out a program rather than simply a bunch of scattershot classes, which is kind of the way that I'm going to see about this myself. And so that involves, just by way of process, Jeannie's, if I say boss, is that the right word for him? Jeannie's boss and I are in monthly meetings talking about where is McKinney as far as course development, what do you need to have, where might the next grant funds be coming from if we beg for some of them, what can we, your office, you, Tom's office, what can you be doing to support us better? In other words, where do we need to be targeting those outside resources? She has also been recently, in fact I just got an email from her today, engaged in introducing me around the university to other schools who are dealing with exactly the same strategic questions, putting their own programs online and some sharing ideas as between schools. So I guess I would say the support of seeing this from 30,000 feet in a way that you can't do when you're the person who's actually developing and teaching the course is something that we get uniquely from this partnership. And again, I think uniquely from the intra-university partnership, because I trust Anna implicitly that she's looking out for our best interests. And I'm not concerned that this is a negotiation every time we have a meeting. I'm fully confident that this is IU is interested in McKinney doing the best possible job.
That the meetings is a good point. The introducing around. One thing that Anna, who's the manager of our of the instructional design half of our unit, that we're working with a large number of schools on a large number of campuses, and she has identified basically the movers and the shakers in each of the schools that we're working with, and invites them to, it's not a monthly meeting, it's like a quarterly meeting where all of those people get together and discuss the kinds of issues that they're facing. And you find that the law school and the business school and the nursing school and the public health school and the informatics school and all of these other schools and individual programs within schools are running into very similar issues. And when you put those people in at basically that same kind of policy and overarching level together in a room, they listen to each other. They share ideas and they start networking with each other about how to do things more efficiently and more effectively. So just being kind of a catalyst for bringing that kind of group together has helped schools make progress going forward on a more programmatic basis as opposed to a more individual course kind of a basis. It's the other thing that Doug's been working with Max on is curriculum mapping for their certificate, for the certificate programs, and you can most likely easily find people, faculty in the School of Education whose specialty is curriculum development, curriculum and instruction, graduate programs, faculty in those programs that might be willing to do some consulting with you if you're looking at curriculum mapping for an online program.
So when I think about my biggest goal for what we're trying to do at McKinney online, and I'm embarrassed to say my goal because of course this is an institutional project, but it is to see something created and developed we're both proud of, but then it is an institutional project. It is something that McKinney can say is a McKinney program, degree or otherwise. The danger that I see, which worries me to no end, is that there will be one faculty member who's driving everything, and when that faculty member moves on, or gets tired, or takes sabbatical, things kind of wither. And if there's a huge advantage to the partnership, it is that I've more or less outsourced a lot of the driving of this program to Tom's shop, to Jeannie's shop, frankly to others on campus as well, such that I'm pretty confident that things are going to keep developing whether or not I'm interested in continuing to develop them. And when we think about where we want to be 3 years, 5 years down the road, it will not just be to have things we can say that are out there that McKinney has an online presence, but it will be to have something that this is actually a core part of what we do as an educational mission at McKinney. And the partnership across campus gives us that in a way that I'm not sure you can have, at least I haven't conceived of having, if this is purely internal to the law school, if it's purely depending on one faculty member driving things. So there, sort of summarizing a few things from our perspective, the resources are huge for the law school. We simply couldn't do this on our own. The resources available for the partnership. How I sort of sought those out, we had this great fortune of the president throwing a bunch of money at things all at the right time for us. But also, I looked for every possibility to spread our word across the campus and the university to say, gee, you're an administrator of some sort, you should be proud of what we're doing, and maybe you want to back up that pride with some kind of funding. And there's an incredibly large number of small pockets of funding and small pockets of support across the university, frequently run through Tom's office, but not always, in terms of whether it's grants, whether it is somebody willing to come in and help out with certificate mapping, whether it's someone willing to come in and help out with course development. All this stuff is stuff that the university is thrilled to provide, but you gotta work hard and ask for it. So we look very hard for that, and by telling people more or less every time they'll listen, we've got a strategy for doing something that will be a sustainable and sort of institutionalized program. People have been willing increasingly to get on board with us and say we will put our efforts behind McKinney and see you as one of the strategic leaders on the IUPUI campus, the Indianapolis campus of Indiana University. Strategic leaders such that we will be helping you with marketing efforts, and where money's available, we'll be bringing that to your, we're making it available to you. So the partnership is what's made it so far, giving me some confidence that we can actually produce something that will stick around.
What related to that, I would say, is that once you've got going, and you have a quality product to show people, so you can say, we're working on these online courses, but then if you can show them really good online courses, really good student evaluations, really good outcome evaluations, then that success can feed on itself because you have evidence that what you're doing is worth backing. Because that was a lot of it too. You're putting stuff out there that people are saying, oh wow, that's cool.
We are, to be fair, we're at the point of hoping that we're proving that point, but it remains a hope. Tom and I just had a discussion today about a course that's going up, and we said we've got to be real careful that that gets done right. But we'll get there. I appreciate the vote of confidence. Thank you. Yes. How are we doing on comments or insights or
question?
Please, go ahead.
Have you thought through what happens when your course max, you move to a different subject area or you move to a different school or anything? What's the succession plan for your course being taught by someone else? Because I'm assuming that the university owns the course, that's been talked about?
The university keeps a non-exclusive license to use my materials as much as it wants. So, have we thought that, we've worried about that question. The university keeping intellectual property helps, but ultimately, you're right, courses, even online asynchronous courses, remain works of charismatic art, right? In other words, it's the individual driving it who had the ideas who's putting the course up. So the university can take my course site, and they will do so if I leave. Whether they can find somebody to teach it in the same way I did is an open question.
I'm sorry, do they have a non-exclusive license or do they own it?
They have a non-exclusive license. It remains my intellectual property, but they have a license to use it for as long as they want.
Okay. So both the faculty and the institution maintain ownership of the product.
Yeah.
So
again,
that's how legal figured it out.
When we started, not something I had planned for, but I was glad to see that because I have this worry, right? If my course is pretty, those of you who weren't here last time, it's a relatively tangential course. I teach comparative and international competition law online. If that wasn't available in McKinney next year, we'd be all right. But we have publicly traded corporations going up online next spring. Now that's a pretty core course. And so if we lose that one online, that's a big hit. So the fact that those materials remain available for someone else to teach in theory, whether an adjunct or otherwise, that's a valuable part of this institutionalization idea.
One of the goals of this process, if I may though, about doing the design part well, is that hopefully the courses are designed well enough that they can be, with some measure, easy measure, transferred to another instructor. That's one of the goals.
Of course, there's no surety that whoever's teaching the course next isn't going to say, nah, don't do it that way. I'm going to start it all over from scratch, because they have the freedom to do that, and they have other ideas about how to teach the subject matter. But we can at least offer them a solid starting point. So.
As a person taking a class that's obviously been copied from somebody else, and luckily I'm not paying for the course, but I would be pissed if my professor hadn't authored some of the materials and hadn't gone through and vetted the materials. And I'm taking a course that's on top of HTML code and CSS. Some of the material is very outdated because code changes every year. And so I don't know if as an institution you would be benefiting your students. You know, you can copy content, and everybody does it if you teach year to year, but you have to change it. And it
has to be maintained.
It has to be maintained, and it has to be changed. And I really see, there's an adjunct teaching the class. He's not involved really. He's working at Lockheed Martin. Doesn't obviously have any time to put into the class. So the students are getting really frustrated with the class because there obviously isn't, the institution's not making him commit time to it.
Well, the institution's probably not paying him for course development as an adjunct.
Two thoughts contained in there. There are really two thoughts. One is the danger of someone else teaching someone else in class. We simply haven't crossed that bridge yet. My theory is it's going to be kind of like any other law school class. In other words, one of the ways the program remains institutionalized is a rotating core of faculty, as faculty retire, new ones come in, who are committed to building good classes and teaching them for the period of time they're at the school. So there's some of that. The other half of your point, which I think is an important one, and we built this into the grant structure. When someone seeks a grant, we've now got them saying, and we promise that we will engage in a constant updating of this course. If you want money to do the course, I'm not sure you're requiring that on your end, but we're certainly pushing our faculty to do that, such that the grant money is tied to a commitment to updating and maintaining the course up to date. So I think we can solve half of that. The other half of someone teaching, there's not a good answer. Actually, I should ask, does anybody have a good answer? Has anybody dealt with that?
To a degree, I mean, that's always going to be a problem, absolutely. But to mitigate it, when you do, if you build your courses through a backwards design and start with learning outcomes moving to there, then you can at least have a charted out sub competencies where you kind of have an idea where this one looks like they just updated the law in this area. So at least you can at least have some sort of idea where you can specifically look, instead of having to look at all the material all the time, you can have a little more priority. And so it helps a little bit, but it's always going to be a problem.
Yeah.
To bring in a completely non-law example, I'm working with another school on campus, and their fully online master's degree program does rely quite a bit on adjuncts, and they are centrally designing their courses, and they are centrally maintaining a chunk of content related to those courses. So you have course X, and you have this chunk of content that is related to course X, and this is preloaded into the Canvas site that then the adjunct has, but then the adjunct can go in and update what they want to update, discussion forum, question prompts, office hours, things like that, but that core of content is owned by the school, and they're responsible for making sure that that's continually updated, so it avoids leaving that all on a series of adjunct faculty members who come and go.
Is anybody using a disaggregated model here, like building, not using one subject matter expert for one professor, one course, using like 3 SMEs for one course development?
So that specific example, no. Let me tell you what we are doing that I'm kind of excited about, but it's slightly different. We have also used some of our grant money to encourage people to produce, we're calling them either mini modules or learning experiences or something, where they are a slice of something someone should know that then I can wrap into my course if I want to. And so someone's building research in international comparative law. One of our library faculty is building that, using all the same design support. And I will, next time I teach my course, bring that in as a module. Someone else is doing a plagiarism module, anti-plagiarism module. And next time I teach a paper course or supervise a paper, I'll bring that in. So a little bit of that, but not quite what you're describing. I actually very much like the idea of breaking the course down. The courses we've been producing have tended to be specialty courses that are individual faculty focused. As we branch out more into core courses like the publicly traded corporations, or maybe more room for something of that sort. Are you finding that to be successful in your work?
For tax, it's necessary, because anybody, it's like law. Oh, I teach law. Well, what do you teach in law? I teach tax. Well, what do you teach in tax? Even something specialized that we do, transfer pricing. I teach transfer pricing. If I know anything about that subject or hiring in it, I'd be like, really? Everything? I don't want to take your course, because it's not possible. Because you're not a valuation expert, you're not, okay, because I know this, we had to disaggregate the courses to be SME focused. Also, when I talk to firms, they know that, and they ask, who are your plural? They never say singular, who's your expert? They say, who are your experts? So I got it quickly. That may be a tax thing, and it may not be a public corporations thing, I don't know.
From the perspective of institutionalizing, that's a very attractive notion, because if you lose somebody, you only lose 1 of 5 or something. That may be easier to replace a small slice. Is that fair to say or not?
Yes. It's project management headache, and there is some ego battle there that we've experienced amongst like, oh, I want to do that, or that's really my area. I got that, and that's tough. But I actually, now that what you said, I like what you said model also of like, if we could really modularize outside of the 3-credit system, like we still do 3-credit courses. If we could miniaturize 1 credit or even half credit-ease, so that we could do, plagiarism, and build courses based on these modules, and you have an overseeing person who pulls together and then makes it fluid, so somebody doesn't realize that they're not going over speed bumps.
Right.
That'd be cool.
Yes.
Plus easy to update.
Easy to update.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, another unlaw related, because I work with everybody. One other grant thing that has come out of McRobbie's initiative to get things online, there was a grant proposal done, and they do it every year for gateway courses, which are the large enrollment undergraduate courses. So like, I'm working with an introductory psychology group, but they're sociology, economics, accounting, like the basic accounting classes. And what that was, there were faculty from multiple campuses who were teaching. So we had faculty from six campuses who were teaching the introductory psychology course. They came together and wrote a grant proposal to work on the psychology course together. And what they did was they got the funding, and that meant they got us with them, and they went through and they broke the course down, because there are the things that you teach in an introductory psychology course, just like the different aspects you would teach in tax or you would teach in whatever. And each faculty member took a piece. So someone's doing neuros, someone's doing sensory, someone's doing learning, someone's doing whatever. And they're then compiling all of these resources together, which then everybody can take what they want and put that together into their course. So it's a collaborative, it's not really a collaborative process, but it's a cooperative process. And people can take what they would take and leave what they would leave, but it's built with the concept that everyone's not using the same text, everyone's not using the same publisher materials or other kinds of things. So it's really collecting the expertise of these individual IU faculty members and then sharing them across the other campuses. But you could do similar things within a department.
So a couple of questions, one of which goes back a bit, but you were talking about the building into the grant, the obligation, responsibility as well to update the material. And it kind of also ties into this, breaking introductory psychology into 5 or 6 pieces. For both of those, my question is, for $5,000, or does the grant renew? As long as you keep the class running, and surely the and I know your name's not Shirley, but surely the 4 or 5 psychology professors who are cutting out a class that's going to enroll 3,000 students over the course of 2,000 students or over all of the sections all year long are probably getting a little bit more than $5,000 to do that work.
So my answer to the question, no, it doesn't renew. Now, one could, I guess, come back to you for another grant to re-up the course. People do that. We have not so far at the law school been doing that. 5,000 has proved to be enough to get the commitment. Now, again, we're relatively new with this. The folks of you who've been doing this for a longer time and have whole programs up, I know there are some in the room might have a more realistic or cynical, however you want to see it, view of this. So far,
it's really 10, eh? 10. You said it's matching.
Well, it's matching, but yeah, but matching really means the dean frees me up from committee work to the extent necessary. You didn't hear that, but realistically, the dean didn't give me money. So it's $5,000. That to me is, once I've built the course, I'm now kind of personally committed to it. So I think I'd probably be working on re-upping it even without the commitment. But with the commitment, I'm
But and I see that more, that's more understandable when it's your course.
Yes.
Rather than a course that 2 or 3 different people might teach, and how are they as invested?
Serious collective action problem, right? What are you seeing with the psychology?
I honestly do not know how much the grant was for that. I know each faculty member got a course release, and I know each faculty member got, it might have been an iPad. I think it was either an iPad or an equivalent PC.
To keep, like theirs.
Yeah.
Well, the course release is
Yeah, the course release is really key.
Yeah, so I'll get together with the other 3 people, all of whom are me, that teach commercial law, and we'll parse this course out, and then I'll get course relief for developing it, except I can't, because then no one will teach commercial law. I don't know, maybe you have 70 or 80 people on your faculty, and that's how you can have 5 experts in tax, but not all of us are as fully staffed as that. So it gets a little tricky.
Sometimes it's a similar stipend, so if you're in a 10-month contract, you might get additional monies to work with.
Yeah, the problem is the research grants are about 15, so getting somebody to take 5 to develop a course rather than 15 to work on research, especially when the university's trying to get the Carnegie's tier 1, is a little tricky.
Yeah, I'll observe the time just because I'm sure there's good food out there before the last session. But don't let me stop with your comments if that's all. All right.